We are joined this morning by the general manager of the Detroit Lions. He's Brad Holmes. Brad, appreciate you making some time for us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. We called it a heat check. 4 trade-ups at the NFL draft. You certainly wanted to go get your guys. How are you feeling as you reflect back on the draft?
Oh, we feel great. Look, we always feel great about all of our picks. We always feel good about all of our picks. Not saying that I'm saying that we know what's going to happen with all of our picks, but when Dan and I are aligned with our conviction on who we select at the time, we're fired up and we get, who we want and we can sleep good at night. And the rest, whatever happens. We're going to do our best and we hope for the best. That these players have good careers and they're good fits. But it's just I've always said it's just those times where you're kind of got a warm. I don't know. I hope it works. And you select it, that's when you don't sleep good at night.
How surprised were you that Trenton Arnold, 1, was available, and what's the process like of trying to find a trade partner to move up to get the guy you want?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So definitely surprised that he was, let's call it, in striking range. It's funny. I kind of, it was a stack of players that Dan and I agreed upon. And, like Terrion was kind of like floating on the fringe of would he even be available.
Yeah.
And he was, and so obviously, he was at the top of that thing. And so, just kind of a late gut, just trying to see. But, look, we had some guys that we liked. We knew that we may have had to trade up to even get some of those guys that we liked. But when we saw Terrion continue to get down there, I think I started calling somewhere like in the late teens when I saw him get down there just to see if we can get up, in the higher 20s, or I could say the lower 20s, to see if we can get a shot. We just saw a chance to get a player that we really liked, and glad it worked out.
I don't know how much you can get into the secret sauce of constructing a trade, but the value of the trade when he's available in the teens, it's obviously going to take more to go up and get him. If he's at 24, it's not going to take as much as it would to get into the teens. We always talk about the draft value chart. How do you assign value to picks, 3rd or 4th or whatever, that you're going to offer to another team to go up and make that pick?
Yeah, the trade chart's a good resource, and it's good to give you some guidelines, and it's based off of past history, but the trade chart can't predict let's call it wild situations and chaos, and the trade chart doesn't know which player you are trading to get. So that's when you got to kind of throw the chart out the window. And so even if, the value was, we end up giving a 3rd, if the value was really more of a 4th, but you don't have a 4th. So you kind of work with, okay, well, all right, let's just get a, future late pick back. But so when it's like, okay, the trade chart might say, 3rd is, or it should be a 4th. Well, it's the player you're getting. And so that's why we always go back to, looking at players over positions, or looking at, like, we use the trade chart. And again, it's a good tool, but there's times where you got to, understand for what it is.
We're talking to Lions general manager Brad Holmes. Corner overhaul this offseason. You take the Carlton Davis trade plus doubling up on corner early in the draft. How much improvement do you expect from that room, even with 2 rookies this season?
Yeah, we expect a vast improvement in the secondary as a whole. We feel like we have a lot of guys now that have a good mix of proven play time. We have a good mix of guys that have versatility at multiple spots, and we have a good mix of, youthful and future and young guys. So we really like our mix that we have, and like I said, it's going to be a very, very competitive room. Even all these guys that are returning, the guys that we got in free agency, just like when we are very convicted and we draft guys that we really, really like, we sign and trade for guys that we really, really like. So even before we were able to draft these two guys in the top 2 rounds, we like the guys that we had at the time. So it just made it even more competitive. But we really like the versatility. They're all fits, and it's going to be a fun competition.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about your first 4th-round pick, Giovanni Manu. There's a lot of mystery about his development. When would he be ready? And those are questions for a later date. But when he is in this draft and you're trying to assess when is the right time to take him, how much competition do you feel there was for you to have to go up and make that pick? And then just tell us a little bit about what you have in a player and an athlete like Giovanni Manu.
Yeah, so look, we try to do the best we can in terms of assessing the value and placing the right value on him. But, sometimes when you get to day 3 of the draft and you see what's available and what's left and how it's fell, we just kind of got in the mode of let's get the guys that we want. And, so we didn't want to kind of, take the risk of, well, let's just sit back and wait and be patient. And if he's there, he's there. If he's not, he's no. It's like we want these guys. And so that's kind of what went into the, trading up to get him. And it's not like we traded up like 3 rounds to get him or something, but, we just felt like, look, and there wasn't a lot of, if you look back at it, there wasn't many, guys of his position, of his upside, really available, really. But in terms of what we're getting, look, we're just getting a guy that has elite measurables, all the athletic ability. The testing numbers are the testing numbers, and I know that looks good on paper, but when you look at him, even at, British Columbia, and we can look at, I know there's talk about, well, look who he was going against. Mm-hmm. Well, look at the player. It's not about who he's going against. Like, we know who he's going against, but for one, he's doing what he's supposed to do versus the guys that he was going against. You see him bearing multiple guys and, at the second level, at the line of scrimmage, you saw him playing with physicality and tenacity and finish. And then you're looking at, so regardless of the defensive end that was rushing against him, it's, look at his feet, look at his bend, look at his ability to change directions. And again, he's doing what we thought he was supposed to be doing at that level. So again, I think the upside is enormous. And look, I know he's got to get used to the speed of the game, and we might experiment on playing him at different spots that he hasn't been used to playing. But look, we're really excited. And again, he just stood out like one of those guys that, man, let's go and get this guy, and we feel really good about it.
Brad, you guys were excited to announce the extensions of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell right before the draft. It was kind of fitting, right? Guys that you had drafted. Adam Schefter the same day reported that no Goff extension was, quote, imminent, that you guys have talked, but it's not close. Is that a fair assessment? What update can you give us? I know it takes 2 sides, but just your side. Do you want to get it done this offseason, or are you cool waiting?
Yeah, I mean, well, look, first and foremost, he's earned an extension, and it's important. It's a high priority for us, and both sides are working really, really hard. And these things just take time, and this working on not only trying to get an extension done with him, but, like you said, Penei and Saint, it's not something that we waited until after the season to start planning for, the whole process of budgeting and preparation and all that kind of goes into it. We've been preparing for a while. And look, in a perfect world, we'd have had all 3 of them done. Bang, bang, bang. But these things just kind of take a while, especially with the quarterback market. But I do have faith that it's going to get done.
And I think fans would probably like, they'd love more insight to everything.
Of course.
But in regards to the complexity of the deal with Jared Goff, it's not as easy as two guys coming off of rookie contracts and extending them. This is a guy where there's a lot of numbers and there's a lot of cap consideration. How much more difficult is the Goff extension than the ones were for Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Yeah, I mean, there's some uniqueness there, in some different areas, but still, he's performed at a high level, and you look at what the results have been, and we still feel good about where he's at. So yeah, he's not one of the guys that was recently drafted and all that stuff, but that's even better because we even have more of a body of work to examine and analyze. So, but yeah, all those things, you look at all of it, but again, we've done a lot of work. Again, both sides have. We've done a lot of work. Dialogue has been consistent. There hasn't been just dead periods and all that stuff. So we've been talking, and again, I do have faith through all the looking at all the numbers, and you got to think about what can we do now and what can we do, what are the impacts on the future as well, and we look at all of it because we said all along that when Dan and I first got here, we're looking to build sustained success, and that's still the goal.
Are you comfortable with where you guys are at wide receiver? I know the Josh Reynolds role, is that something that you still want to target, or that you feel you can fill internally with some of the guys you already have?
Yeah, we feel good about the group that we have. I totally understand that you may feel you can feel a little more comfort when you've seen a guy that's actually done it, but some guys that have actually done it, you've seen them do it in the past, but those guys are older. And so just because you've seen a guy do it in the past, he may not look the same, doing it the same way when you're forecasting it to what it's going to look like in the future. So with that said, we feel really good about the upside and the development of the guys that we currently have. That's not saying that we won't add. That's a position that, especially when you get into camp, those guys put a lot of yardage on the field. And so you always got to kind of, at some point, you need to add a guy here or there when some attrition comes. But we feel really good about the guys we have, and obviously we have an elite one that we just did a deal with, and we have Jamison Williams that's been coming on very, very strong, and we have high hopes for him, and we like where he's at this point, and we know that he's just going to continue to get better. Peoples-Jones, we traded for. He was a big-time core player for the Cleveland Browns before we traded for him. But we traded for him, and, the guy comes in late, and he doesn't really know the offense. And so then you hadn't seen Peoples-Jones. And then we all kind of get into the recency bias of, well, what's Peoples-Jones going to do? He hasn't – no, Peoples-Jones can play. And so he does provide an element of being able to play on the outside and being a contested catch guy and, being able to do multiple things. And, we're really excited about Antoine Green, about how he's came along. And, he's another guy that has size, he has speed, and he's a guy that kept getting better and better and better from what we've seen throughout the year. I know he didn't get a ton of, targets in games for the world to see, but us being internally with him every single day throughout the season, we really like he's going. We really like Khalif Raymond, obviously, that we extended last year. So we really like our group right now.
Last one, Brad. There's a lot of excitement. And we're talking to Brad Holmes, Lions general manager. ton of excitement around this football team. Sheila talked about Super Bowl at the jersey unveil. Is that an expectation for this team? Do you embrace that? Is that your expectation?
Yeah, the expectation's always been from day one to continually get better every single year. And I believe we've done that every single year since we've been here. And so getting to the NFC Championship, the next step would be to be in the Super Bowl. So I think that would be definitely the goal, and that's what we've done. So that's definitely going to be our aim for sure.
We appreciate your time and your insight and giving us a little more information as the offseason rolls on. Good stuff. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thank you.
Lions GM Brad Holmes, 97.1.